Hey friends, welcome to the Johnson City Living Podcast, where we learn about the people, places, events, and flavors that make Johnson City just a lovely place to live. I'm your host, Colin Johnson, with the Colin and Carly Group and Keller Realty. If you're interested in buying or selling a home in the area, or if you're looking at investing in a rental property, give us a call at 423-930-8003, and we will look forward to helping you. Now, let's get to today's episode. I am excited for you guys. I'm excited for me because I get to meet Taylor Klarman with River Run Angling, and I'm excited to just learn about fishing because my dad took me fishing when I was a kid. I've always had an affinity for it, and I'm looking forward to jumping in the boat with you sometime when it warms up because it's a little bit cold right now. But Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so River Run Angling, how does that going?
It's going good. We've been in the area for a couple of years now. We're based out of Bristol. My wife and I live just a couple minutes from the South Holston River, out in the Hickory Tree area.
Oh yeah.
And just moved in there last January. It was, kind of did some hard work over the past few years and got our little dream location, so to say. But makes the commute to work a lot faster and easier. But we really enjoy living out there and just watching this little business of ours grow. So
I love it. Okay, so Johnson City Living, I asked, I guess, first question, what's your favorite thing about Johnson City? But since you live in Bristol, we'll hit that next. So Johnson City, first thing you love about JC?
Yeah, so we moved to Bristol from Johnson City.
Okay.
So we live.
Got a history?
Yeah, we lived down here for a couple years, and I think my favorite thing about Johnson City is, and it kind of goes back to Bristol later on, but it's not too much and it's not too little. It feels like this perfect community with a lot of accessibility to fun things to do.
Yeah.
The community itself is overall friendly. Everybody's caring, and you just have access to all these fun things to do. Whether it's going to Southern Craft for a great barbecue, or a couple of the dog parks that are here, which is huge for us. We had a lot of dogs. Even going up to Winged Deer Park to watch the river go by and people fish. Or it's just this community that is not overwhelming, but is jam packed full of just fun things to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I love that it's kind of not too big, not too small.
Yeah,
It's just right.
It's perfect.
We're like
perfect.
Goldilocks and the porridge.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, favorite thing in Bristol? And now that you're a Bristolian, or however you say it.
Yeah. So, and it's a guilty pleasure, and it's totally to my core. But my favorite thing in Bristol is actually State Line Bar and Grill.
Yeah.
And it's because of their chicken wings. I'm a huge boneless wing fan, and I just feel like they have the best to offer. And they provided a community for me when I first moved here. I was waiting on my drift boat to be built, and I actually worked there for a little bit.
Oh, sweet.
But the owner, Jack and Annette, they're brother and sister, and they just provided this space for me to meet a lot of the community, because it's kind of just a meeting point in downtown Bristol, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's probably my one, huge guilty pleasure favorite thing about Bristol is State Line Bar and Grill. And I know that sounds so simple, but if you break it down and see what it has to offer to everybody that just meets there, you're talking, the day after Christmas they're open, and you can go in and, get a hot toddy with your friends and hang out. And it's just kind of it's an epicenter for downtown.
Cool.
For me, that's it.
Where people get together and hang out.
Yeah.
Now let's rewind. You said you're a boneless wing fan?
Boneless wing?
There's some people probably listening that said,
Sure.
Those are chicken nuggets. That's not.
No.
Those aren't wings.
There may be, but if they've never tried them, I would highly encourage them to go check them out.
And you don't like the bone? Is it just because it's the work of it?
It's the work. You nailed it. It's the work. I like getting a fork and just being able to pluck that thing off the plate and get it in my mouth. So
Favorite flavor of wing?
So sweet chili, sweet and savory. I like the sweet stuff, and the spicy kick at the end's really good. So.
Fun fact, I get the flats, which are not the little drums, which are like the little drumsticks.
So you pay the extra $2 for the flats?
I will, because you can twist one of the bones and pop it right out, and then you just dip it in the blue cheese and strip it. And so you get them out, you've got just a pile of bones at the end of the deal, and they are so good. But I think, I don't know, my personal opinion is the bone adds a little flavor, but we can go around on that.
Yeah.
It's not going to make us not be friends.
Yeah.
We'll hang out. You can get your boneless. My son eats boneless ones.
Yeah.
So, all right, where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in a small town in southern Alabama named Fairhope, and it's nestled right on Mobile Bay, which
cool.
leads out into the Gulf of Mexico.
How beautiful is that?
Extremely fortunate and blessed to grow up there. There again, kind of the accessibility standpoint to have the great outdoors. Kind of the saying about Fairhope is you were perfectly nestled between the woods and the water.
Oh.
So we lived waterfront, and you could drive 30 minutes away and be in Blackshear, Alabama, or some other places that was, provided the deer hunting and the dirt road riding and some of the outdoor stuff there. But yeah, we were just perfectly, nestled between the woods and the water. And so my outdoor adventures, started in elementary school.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. Where did you, so I'm assuming there's where you started fishing.
That is where I started fishing. My mother owned a teacher supply store in downtown Fairhope, and so I have two older brothers, and so when we would get out of school for the day, we would check in at her shop and let her know we were alive, and then it was only maybe a 5-minute walk down to the Fairhope Municipal Pier, which stretched out, over Mobile Bay. But we would just go down there with fishing rod in hand, and we'd stay there until she was done, or and we'd get picked up and go home. And so yeah, it started at a very early age. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Did you have somebody teach you how to fish?
My mom actually. I was raised predominantly by my mom. She grew up in Georgia, but her family always had houseboats on Lake Lanier.
Oh yeah.
And so she grew up a fisher lady, and yeah, so she was actually the one who, in the early beginning stages, taught me how to fish. And so, throughout the rest of our life, we've just shared such a great journey, fishing multiple locations all across the United States together. And that's kind of our thing.
Yeah.
So we did, last year, not last year, it was this year. It came out just a few months ago with Northeast Tennessee Tourism Association. They did a big, very nice, well-written article on my mother being a fly fisher lady.
That's awesome.
And they got to go out on the river with us for a day, and they filmed us, and it was great. It was really, really good. So she's been the biggest part of my fishing journey for sure.
She catch more fish than you got there?
It's a good question.
She's listening. So,
she is listening. She will hear this. She did that day, but only because I was rowing the boat. But she does give me a run for my money every time we actually get to fish together. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's so special. Now, do your brothers fish too?
They do, yeah. So my oldest brother, he lives on Magnolia River in Alabama. And so, they've got the whole waterfront property, boat, dock, pier, and he's got 2 little girls that he teaches to fish. And then my middle brother, he lives kind of near 30A in Florida, seaside down there, and he's got twin boys who are 10, and so he's teaching them to fish, and they come up here and they fish with me a few times. So
how fun is that?
It's the best. Yeah. It's watching kind of, I think through things in life, as we progress in age, I feel like you get to regress in either raising your children or giving your friends' children an experience, or your family members, and so in doing that, I feel like I get to be a kid again when I'm teaching them, and watching their eyes light up when that rod, bends over with the fish on it. It's one of those moments you can't replace.
That's awesome. Yeah. So. Now, do you have kids?
I do. I have one. So we're a year and 3 months into our first child. We have a little girl. Her name's Cooper, and first boat ride for her down the river was at 6 months old. We put a life vest on her, and she looked like a little jelly bean.
She's all life vest and face.
It didn't last long. We were only out there for about 2 hours, but my wife just held on to her for dear life, and not that there was a reason to, but and we got her down the river, and she's been on one other boat ride since then, but definitely waiting, at the earliest of age that she can function a fly rod, she'll start learning.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, talk to us a little bit about River Run. How did that start? Like, where did you get the idea? Like, hey, I could fish for a living. Yeah,
so it goes back to growing up in Fairhope. There was just a couple things I think I was really bound and destined to do in life. One of them, unknowingly at the time, was the military, and then the second one was being a fishing guide. I really should have probably just started out being a fishing guide right out of high school. Life takes us on various paths. I ended up in the military. I I grew up a saltwater fisherman, so the techniques are different. You're using spinning rods and such. While I was in the military, I was injured in Afghanistan, came back. I was in Wounded Warriors for a little bit, and they sent me to Project Healing Waters for a group trip, which is fly fishing. And so that was when I was first introduced to fly fishing. I was just habituated with it after that fact. And I got out of the Marine Corps, had a friend call who I served with, went out to Oregon, lived on his ranch. He taught me how to be a fly fishing guide, and I got to practice fly fishing a lot more. Finished some college, moved back here to the East Coast, worked for the Veterans Affairs for a little bit, ended up getting some more schooling under my belt. And then it was just one of those things where it was like, if you don't do this now, you're never going to do it. And of course there was other, circumstances around that. I was looking more for the life I wanted to live. And for me, I wanted everything I had in Oregon geographically, the mountains, the snowboarding, the rivers, the hiking, the wildlife, and living in a city in Birmingham, Alabama just doesn't give you that. So I found East Tennessee, and it was like, at that time, I was single. I had a black Labrador who I still have named Molly. So it was just me and Molly
on the road. How did you pick Johnson City out of
the rivers?
The rivers. Okay.
Literally just the rivers. So a lot of people don't know this.
And a lot of people do.
And a lot of people do. But the South Holston River is actually in the top 6 rivers in the United States to fly fish. So top 6.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing when you consider all the tributaries and rivers that the United States holds. Right. Absolutely. I mean, there's just thousands of them.
Yeah.
But that's how I picked this area. Just ended up here because of the rivers. And with the intent was to move here and start river run angling. I didn't have a name for it first, and that was a funny process, bouncing names off family and friends and my parents. But I wanted it to be a little different. A lot of the companies up here name South Holston this or South Holston that, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that, but I like being the youngest child. I've kind of always been that black sheep. I like marching to the beat of my own drum. So we picked a little different name.
I love it.
So we run, the name notes something else. It's when you think of the word angling, it means all measures of fishing. And so I do predominantly fly fishing trips, but I still have some of that saltwater technique in my body with the spinning rods and stuff. So I also do spinning rod light tackle trips. And that's what angling means. It's the measures of all ability.
Where do you go bass fishing in the lake?
I've been with a friend of mine. I haven't been, as they call, the bassin side of the dam. The bassin side of the dam. I don't do a whole lot of that.
Those deep water guys?
Yeah, deep water guys up there. But in a roundabout way, that's how river run angling was formed.
That's cool.
And we're just here and doing it. So
that's awesome. Tell us about the business. So is it just you?
So it's we're kind of getting the business side of things. So when you look at the guiding world, most guides, they're basically contractors that provide their services to other companies. So I have grown to a point over the past year to where I'm utilizing 3 to 4 and sometimes 5 other guides to run trips for me, and I'm still running my own trips. We're going through some growing pains right now, which is great. You just got to accept those challenges. Fortunately enough for me, I really want 2 to 3 guides that specifically work for me and not enlisting other people's services. So right now, currently, I just had one of my Marines that I served with who's just been a lifelong best friend since then. He just moved to the area for intensive purpose to start guiding for me full time.
Oh, cool.
So he's helping out with the growing pains a little bit. He's going to start a new career. So the business side of things is really great, and we're growing. We just got to keep up with the demand and what's going on, and facilitating that to the best interest of everybody. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, being a small business owner is challenging, but it's like one of the best things ever.
It really is, and it's kind of that saying that you may have seen or not, but it's like, if you never want to sleep again, own your own business, right? And that's, so right now,
that's a good one.
I have my own child and my own business, and now I just never sleep. But
smart.
But
don't start a business while you're not sleeping anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it is. It's growing, and I just got to a point this year, about halfway through the season. I've done some things on the back end of the business where we hired a marketing manager, we hired an SEO guy, and they're local out of Kingsport, so we like keeping business in the area. They did such a phenomenal job for us, and I feel like we've ran great trips for people, and so we're getting the repeat business, and then we're getting a lot of new folks coming in. It just it makes me smile talking about it, because I think life is a process, and you start a business, and then you get to these little growing points, and it's can be a headache sometimes, but it's a headache worth smiling over.
Agreed. So. That's awesome. Yeah. That's really good. Tell me about your wife a little bit. What's her name?
Yeah, so my wife's name is Marley. Marley's originally from Atlanta.
Okay.
She's from Atlanta, and she moved up here to finish her school out. She's an occupational therapist.
Yeah.
And so right now, she took the initial year off after having Cooper, which is our daughter. She was a stay-at-home mom, and it kind of just got to that point after a year. I came home one day, and it was like the wheels fell off, but in the best way possible. It was like, I'm going back to work, I was like, go.
Yeah.
Do it. If you're done,
do it.
Go. So she was working geriatrics with a lot of the assisted living facilities in Johnson City and Bristol. And, she just wanted to take a different approach to it. And so she has switched over to pediatrics.
Cool.
And now she's working for Blue Mountain Therapy in Abingdon.
Nice.
Which is great. They have a daycare facility on site, so she gets to take Cooper with her to work
and see her.
And she also treats kids at the daycare portion of it.
How cool is that?
It's really cool, and so her opportunity has been seized, and she is just making the most of it. She was not a fly fisher lady when I met her. In fact, I don't think it ever fished at all. And we had a day over the Thanksgiving break. We had the babysitter over and got to throw her on the boat. And, that's how our dating started was, one, me being me and always wanting to be on the river, but I would just throw her on the boat and we'd go float down the river.
Yeah.
But we did fish with each other for the first time in a few months last week. And she had, in my opinion, the best day fishing that she's had in a long time.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and just to be able to integrate, everything that we do together and do that. But so she's doing pediatrics. She's working at Blue Mountain Therapy in Abingdon, and she's still fishing. So
keeping an eye on you.
Keeping an eye on me. That's right. Keeping me together.
Now, speaking of therapy, you guys offer a handicap accessible drift boat, right?
Yeah. So, and this is kind of one of those things where we enlist somebody else's, not service, but boat. So Blue Mountain Therapy, where my wife works, the owner is Clint Waddell. Clint is just this huge conservationist, outdoorsman. He's been a fly fishing guide in his life. He still does guided fly fishing trips through Blue Mountain Therapy, which is really neat. And I'll hit on that real quick and then go with the rest of it. But so when some of the kids hit their weekly goals, Clint rewards them with float trips down the river.
How cool is that?
Well, I mean, to be able to have that as a reward, I probably would have done a lot better in high school if my parents were like, hey, if you just do this week, we'll send you on a guided trip down, out in the bay or something.
Seriously.
So anyway.
Instead of like we're going to give you like a popsicle or something.
Yeah. So I think that's really cool. But so Clint, through the physical therapy side and the things that he does being the owner of Blue Mountain Therapy, he had a full-sized handicap accessible drift boat made. And so the way that it works, the back of the drift boat is on pins, and you can pull the pins, you can drop the back gate down, and so you can roll wheelchairs up into the front of it and lock them down to the floor and get those folks down the river. So I got to participate on one of the trips last year. Really, really neat trip. Took a gentleman with cerebral palsy.
Oh yeah.
Got him to go out there and catch his first fish on a fly rod. This to me was an amazing story. So Clint had a patient that was blind, and they were actually able to get him, locked into a chair down the river and got him to catch his first fish on a fly rod.
How awesome is that?
It's amazing. It's just really great. It's a great
those are
thing.
The days you're like, today was just a great day.
Well, you get out there and, no matter the disability, you get to do something different. And I think at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you walk away and it's not even about what you've done for them. It's watching them succeed in the entire environment and be able to do something that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do without that catalyst of that boat.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that boat, you cannot get those folks down the river. So we want to keep promoting this. And this is not even for river run angling. This is for everybody. Sure. Because in order for this to work, if somebody calls me and says, we need access to this, I call Clint, we work together. You know, he either brings me the boat or I go get it, or he's on the trip, and you know, we're working together, and it's all in the same intent and purpose, is just to get these folks down the river in this handicap accessible drift boat. So,
and just give them just an amazing experience that they never would have had.
100%.
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's
rewarding.
Yeah, it's really rewarding. But at the end of the day, it's you watch people get to do these things, you know, with the catalyst of that boat and doing it. It's hard to describe. I'm trying to put it in words right now, and I can't.
I can
great.
tell you're getting a little, you know, it's just awesome. It's
awesome.
Yeah,
man.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about drift boats, because
Sure.
You know, it's not a canoe. It's not it doesn't have an outboard motor on the back of it. Yeah. You know, what's up with drift boats? I see them running around behind trucks here and there.
Well, there's
all over the place.
Yeah, there's 1,000 of them here. So drift boats, you row them.
Okay.
Standard drift boats usually in between 12 to 15 feet long. They're about 4 feet wide. Some are a little wider. You know, it's just a point of nostalgia. You're going down a river, the current's taking you. You don't have motors on them. There's no noise.
It's so quiet, yeah.
And there's just one person in the center, just rowing, and you know, obviously they're your guide, and they're guiding you down the river. Drift boats, and Mitch and I have kind of hit on this from where he's from. So drift boats were actually originated and formed by the Mormons.
Okay.
And so one of the original drift boat companies is named Hyde, and they're from Montana. And so that's where the boats were kind of originated. But yeah, it's not a canoe and it's not a motorized boat. It's just kind of perfectly situated in between those two. And
it's got a flat bottom, but at the ends it really shoots up.
Flat bottom. Your stern is pointed and raised about 4 feet off the water, or your bow. I'm sorry, your bow is raised, pointed 4 feet off the water. Your stern more square, but also raised, and it's kind of a U shape.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a hammock almost. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish it rode like a hammock.
Sounds like you need to get a gel padded seat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're not fast. You know, and it just, for me, it all breaks back to nostalgia. Some of the boats, like mine, you can put a little 9 horsepower motor on the back of it and kind of putt around with it. But, you know, I don't think fly fishermen, they don't come here for that, you know, and that's a good thing. And plus, keeping the motors out of the river kind of goes back to that conservation point.
Yeah, you're not leaking oil and gas.
Not leaking oil and gas. You're not debilitating the resource that we have and love so much. So, they're very unique piece of equipment.
They're really cool. Yeah, they look cool. I can't wait to get in one. Talk to us about fish. What kind of fish can we catch when we go out with you on the river?
So predominantly what we're targeting are brown trout and rainbow trout. And
brown trout you can't find all over the place, right? I mean, like, they're not just everywhere. You didn't have them in Alabama, probably.
No, not unless you get in the very northern parts of Alabama, but even then they're sparse. So that's why the South Holston's so unique. So we used to have a restocking program for the brown trout, you know, back in the 80s, and then their habitat and reproducing thrived. TWRA did a slight restocking program with the browns in the early 2000s and realized, like, hey, this just isn't needed. So basically today, fast forward to 2023, every brown trout that you catch in that river is native. They're native to that river, which is a very unique factor. We do have a stocking program with the rainbow trout.
Okay.
So they're still doing that. You know, there are some wild rainbow. I think the majority of them are stocked. It really just depends on who you ask. But those are the two main fish that we would target going down those rivers.
Now, I'm trying to think on the fishing. Like, how do you guys not overfish it? I mean, if you've got 1,000 guides out there and you got, you know, they're running, I don't know how many trips you do a day, maybe 2?
So that's
do you catch and release everything, or do you get to take it, you know, like just...
I am a catch and release company. You know, you'll have people ask to keep them all the time, and then we just go into this conservation, you know, talk, and kind of near the end of it, I think...
Would you like to come back next year?
Yeah. I think people...
Let's leave them here then.
Yeah, I think people, once you have the serious talk with them about the conservation, why we don't like to keep the trip. You know, the running joke for guides is, one, is job security, but that's not it. I mean, the main thing is not depleting that resource, because if we deplete it, then there's nothing for anybody.
Yep.
that is a hot topic right now as far as it being overfished. Yeah, there's a lot of guide services. There's a lot of recreational people. East Tennessee is one of the most diverse fisheries in the United States. So we have a huge influx of people coming from out of town, plus the local people who like to enjoy it. And then you add all the guide trips on top. So yeah, that's a hot topic, and that's probably a whole nother podcast.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Is there a group of do you have like a guide organization that you guys kind of get together and talk about these things, or?
Great question. So John Hooper, who manages South Holston River Lodge, Matt Manis, who owns High Country Boats in Elizabethton, and a couple other folks in the area, they got together this year and formed the Blue Ridge Guide Association.
Oh, cool.
And so basically what that is to give the guide community a collective voice to be able to go talk with TVA, TWRA, those government entities that control a lot of what we do.
Yeah.
Some people know what a tailwater system is, some people don't. And a tailwater system, it's a dam controlled water release system. So we rely on the water out of the lake to be released.
Which is all we have, right?
Yeah. No.
Well, you do have some mountain streams.
We've got the mountain streams and stuff, but the majority of what we do, is the tailwater system.
Right.
But you've got the lake, which feeds the river and then flows into another lake. TVA, TWRA, but mainly TVA controls the water release schedules. The Guide Association, one of our biggest things is not necessarily having enough water for us to be able to float down the river, but having a continuous flow. That continuous flow that feeds the river does a lot of things with the photosynthesis, causes bug hatches, which these fish need bugs to eat.
Right.
And it is a sustainable feature for the river to always have flowing water.
Gotcha.
So our Guide Association does a myriad of things for the community. We do tailwater cleanups. Once every 3 to 6 months, there's a tailwater cleanup. All the guides take their seats out of their boat. We go out there for a day. We get all the trash out of the river. They've got roll-off dumpsters that all
Which is just crazy. People pick up your trash. I mean, how hard is it?
I think a lot of what we see, and this is just my opinion, a lot of what we see is really stuff that's been in the river for 20, 30 years. Old tires, somebody's stove that they rolled down a hill. I mean, just... and
don't do that stove. Let's just roll it down the hill. It'll go in the river. It'll be fine.
Well, 10 to 15 years ago, what's happening on these rivers today was not happening back then. It was just a river.
It was just a river. Nobody was going there.
But now it's an income-producing entity that brings in millions of dollars
for the economy. Yeah,
absolutely. And so we are very much conservationists, and the Blue Ridge Guide Association is giving us that collective voice to combat a lot of things
awesome.
Right now.
And probably educating some of the guides who are like, yeah, you can take it home,
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's, maybe one a week or something,
It's a healthy conversation, but it's doing what it's supposed to do, and we're looking forward to the future with it for sure.
I love it. All right, let's say somebody's listening, they want to hook up with you and they want to get on a boat. What's the process? What does that look like?
Yeah, so...
You got a website you go to?
Yep, so the website is riverrunangling.com.
Okay.
There's a contact us form on there. You can submit, all your information, name, phone number, email. We are not a spam company. We will not email you once a month. We won't even email you once a year. I just don't believe in that. But leave us all your information. If you've got dates, specific dates, leave that in there. And then we will... I like picking up the phone. I like talking to my clients direct. So
Same here.
I usually just call them direct right back and say, hey, let's talk about it.
How far out do they need to?
Yeah, good question.
Are you looking for like April already?
I've already got trips on the books for March, April, and May.
Oh, wow.
I just booked one of my favorite ones last night. I do a 5-boat trip every year with Washington and Lee University Fly Fishing Club.
Oh, that's cool.
So we've got them hooked up with some of our lodging partners, and they're coming back for their 3rd year in a row now, which is great. And each year, we started out with 1 boat. Second year went to 3 boats. This year it's 5 boats. So it's good when, their club's building, which is the greatest thing.
Yeah.
Like I wish they would have had fly fishing clubs or fishing clubs general when I was in school.
That's cool.
But yeah, just contact us through the website. My cell phone number's on the website. That's the direct number. I'm really responsive to text because I'm always on the river. I usually can text people during the lunch break or just call, and we will definitely call you back every day after 5 p.m.
And you mentioned lodging, so like they can connect with you and set the whole trip up.
Yes, I've got 2 main lodging companies that have, between the 2 of them, they have 5 houses directly on the South Holston River. You can
That's
find
what you want to do. You want to stay on the river if you can, right? I mean, it's just beautiful. And,
It's beautiful. The scenery's great. You get a peace of mind. The houses are just amazing properties. You get to watch the water. All the other boats float by. Where these 5 houses are located on the river, you're still only 12 minutes from downtown Bristol, and then you're 23 minutes from Johnson City.
so you can run and get boneless wings.
You can run and get some boneless wings. That's exactly right. Yeah. But yeah, we can handle all that. It's kind of funny. I mean, we've, as this has grown, I get just as many calls about lodging as I do fishing, which is great because we're able to pair the two together. It's a one-stop shop. You can call me, I can call them, and book your dates, your lodging, and everything for you, and then you just show up and have a good time.
I love it. Yeah. How many people can get in a boat? Like.
Yeah, that's a good question. So most drift boats only hold 2 people. Okay. My drift boat's a little bigger drift boat and has an option. We can put a 3rd seat in. So we can take 3 anglers on my boat. That's not always the best scenario, but sometimes you get mom and dad who have a 10-year-old that just wants to ride down the river. Right. So I can hold 3 people. Most of the guides that I enlist to help out with the trips, they can hold 3 people as well. That's not always the case, but 2 anglers per boat is standard.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you had a bunch of guys or ladies, they're like, okay, we're going to go. So you can accommodate, a bunch of people. Like if you said you want to have a big trip.
Yeah, we can.
5-boat trip is what you were doing.
5-boat trip. We like the corporate trips that come in. Having the friends that I have in the industry, I like to feel like I could facilitate at least a 10 to 12 boat trip if needed.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, doesn't matter how many folks you got, we'll find a way to make it happen for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What does the future look like for River Run, you think?
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Finding 1 or 2 guides that solely work for me.
Yeah.
And facilitating those trips for them throughout the year. I'd like for it to be, ultimately in the end, I would like for it to be I'm fishing 2 to 3 days a week and booking out, 3 to 4 other guides every day, and doing that as I get older. I'm 37. I'm not there yet, but I think by the time I'm 40, I'd like to be more on running the business end of it and booking out all the trips and booking the lodging for folks than having to get in the boat, having to be in the boat going down the river. Yeah. My love and passion will never change for it, and I'll always fish people, I think, 2 to 3 days a week, but I would like to get to more of that status.
Yeah, you're kind of managing as opposed to.
Well, right now I'm doing both.
Right. I know.
And it's not consistent, but they're, our 6 busiest months out of the year. I mean, there's months where I'm booking 10 to 15, 20 trips a week, and I'm having to arrange all those trips with all the other guides, plus I'm guiding 5 to 6 days a week. It's a lot of being on the phone and being in the boat, and I get home and my wife's looking at me just like, you gonna sit down and eat dinner with us?
Yeah. Who are you again?
Yeah, right. Yeah, those 2 ships passing.
I have a picture of this guy. It looks a lot like you.
I get this one a good bit. Your daughter would like to hang out with you.
Good job, Marley. Way to push in on him a little bit. That's right.
But it's needed. She has to bring me back down.
Yeah, I think as guys we want to just grow and thrive and conquer stuff and just push it. And I think that's where our wives balance us out some. They're like, you need to be at home with us some too.
It's needed. I know Marley looks forward to the winter time when I'm home, a lot more and can participate a lot more. And but and she understands it, and it goes back. I tell her, it's like, if I don't do this now, I'm gonna have to be doing it later.
Right.
So let me do it. Let's do it now and not later. So.
Okay. People listening to are probably a lot like me. I have no idea what it costs. Like, do you have ballpark ideas? Like, just I don't know if it's seasonality too. So
no.
You can talk about a little bit of cost so that people are like, oh, that's not too bad.
No. It's not too bad when you look at everything that goes into it from my standpoint, which
100%.
is the operational costs and everything that goes. But I say that to say this, I'm fully aware, though, it is a lot of money, and that's why we just have to do the best trips for people. But so your full days are 8 hours of fishing. Mm-hmm. It's $500 for the full day. That's for 2 anglers. We provide your lunch, snack, drinks, all the gear and equipment. And if you stay at our lodging partners or anywhere local, we will pick you up from your doorstep, take you to the river, and then take you home. So that's $500.
How cool is that? Well, for 2 people, it's $500. I feel like that's a good deal.
I feel like for once we pick
especially if you're getting snacks and food the whole time too, and hanging out with you.
Yep, snacks, food, drinks, and everything, and picking you up and taking you home. Once we're done with the day, we actually have about 10 and a half to 11 hours into the entire day.
Right. You don't just show up and you got to prep the boat. You got to clean it up afterwards, do all that stuff. There's a lot of work.
Full fuel cost, insurance costs, fly costs, gear costs, lunch costs, shuttle costs.
Do you have to have a fishing license?
You do need a fishing license. You can get that from TWRA. The links are on my website. Usually when folks book a trip with me, I send it back in an email, the direct link that you can get that fishing license.
You can just get it for a day or a week or something. You don't have to get a whole year's worth.
You do not have to get a whole year's worth. They offer a 3-day. It's $30 for that. They used to have a 1-day, and it was the same price as the 3-day. So it's just get the 3-day. Sometimes weather makes us shift things a day or two to the left or right. So that 3-day is probably your best option.
Okay.
And back to the trip. So that's a full day. Half days are $400. That's 4 to 5 hours of fishing. Same thing. We'll pick you up from your doorstep and all that. We just do not provide a lunch, but we do provide all the snacks and drinks for the day. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. That's great. I love it. When should people start? It's cold now.
Sure.
But we were talking a little bit before we started about the cold weather anglers that are coming out now. They're a little hardcore.
Hardcore guys come during the winter. They resort to that kind of the more advanced type of fly fishing, which is streamer fishing. But they're your dedicated guys for the winter months. They're willing to be out there and be freezing. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So your business probably picks up in March, April.
Yep. So
then it still can be chilly.
It's still a little chilly, but it's bearable, and the fishing starts to pick back up in a sense of different methods. The flowers are blooming, things are happening, bugs are starting to hatch again. It's you can revert back to dry fly fishing or nymph fishing. But March, April, and May, and then September, October, November, those are our 6 busiest months out of the year.
Okay.
So in between's kind of spotty. It's intermittent. August, kids are going back to school. Parents are done vacation for the year. July is just real hot. Sometimes people don't want to deal with that. June's pretty good, pretty busy too. But
Fish biting in July?
Yeah, fish are biting in July. I like to fish late afternoon in July, and the reason why is this is the biology factor in it, but the bugs that are hatching are kind of late afternoon on the South Holston. You can go out there and do dry fly fishing, which is the flies that are floating on the top, and those fish actually come up from the bottom, eat them, take them back down. So I like doing kind of late afternoon, evening stuff in June and July.
Which is one of the best parts of the day.
Yeah, and that's, it's
beautiful.
Fly fishing's a lifelong learning mentality, but the scenery that goes along with, like you just said, is absolutely amazing. But month by month, not only does the scenery change, but sometimes the methods of fishing change. So we're always transitioning into that next month and what's coming up. So
yeah, there's a quote I love that a man never enters the same river twice.
It's very true.
The river's different and the man is different. And I just love that. And so it's been fun.
Yeah.
Learning about your business today. Anything I didn't ask you want to share?
No, just come fish.
Yeah.
Whether you need a handicap accessible drift boat or you're just looking to have good family time, our family trips are our favorite trips. And just come fish, come see what East Tennessee has to offer and what the South Holston can do, I think, not only from a fishing standpoint, but just from a life perspective. Come ride the South Holston with us for a day and let it take a hold of you just for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a beautiful place. We're I call it God's country. It's important.
It is.
So come check it out.
Yeah.
Hook up with Taylor and River Run Angling. He seems like just a super good dude. So I'm excited I'm going to find a time to ride down with you because it'll be fun. And I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
So, thank you guys so much for listening today. Thank you for being on the podcast. And I learned a lot. I'm excited for the listeners to learn and for your business to continue to flourish and grow. Until next time, I'm Colin Johnson with the Colin and Carly Group and Keller Williams Realty. If you want to move here, meet Taylor, go fishing with me and him, that would be fun. If you want to buy rental properties, we manage a ton of property for people. That side of our business is growing. We help people build wealth through that as well, which is a lot of fun. And so, give me a call. I'd love to help you. I hope you have a great day. Thanks again for listening.